What's up, everyone? This is Cold091 back with another video. Today we're going to be talking about a certain type of black metal. As you guys know, I mostly talk about war metal. So continuing along that theme, we're going to be talking about the raw space scene. First of all, we were listening to Black Witchery, Desecration of the Holy Kingdom. I'll be talking about this more later on. First of all, let's talk about what is the raw space scene. I'm betting most of you know what the raw space scene is, but for those of you who don't know, it's Black Death from Canada. That's or Black Death from any other country approved by the Canadian black metal bands. So stuff like Blasphemy, Abysmal Lord, some would argue Archgoat, Black Witchery, Conqueror, Revenge. So it's either, like I said, it's either stuff from Canada or stuff that got co-signed by the bands from Canada. So first off, like I said, we got Black Witchery. This is technically not raw. This is not from Canada. It is an American band, but this scene, this project is so rooted in the raw space scene, and people talk about this band being in the raw space scene so much that they basically are. You can see, I think there's a picture of, I want to say, Vathana as well as Black Winds, and I think Call of the Storms wearing a Black Witchery shirt. So the scene really loves Black Witchery. Technically, like I said, they're not from Ross Bay, but people in Ross Bay absolutely adore Black Witchery. And for good reason, because this album is an absolute classic. I got the flag right there, as I always point out. This is, in my opinion, as far as US war metal goes, this is the best ever. It's just very reminiscent of Conqueror and Revenge and Sarcophago, but the aggression and noise is turned up to 11. I don't think it's quite as aggressive as Conqueror, but it's definitely more aggressive than Sarcophago, and I'd say Revenge too, but it's close. But regardless, this is just a fucking classic album that oozes the spirit of old metal, and it's such a convincing dose of hatred. It's a lot of war metal bands, they have a hateful sound, but they're not convincing. That's my problem with Primitive Warfare, and sometimes Antichrist Siege Machine. Primitive Warfare has the sound of the Ross Bay war metal scene, but it just doesn't have that conviction. And Black Witchery, I think, is the kings of that conviction. It's just pure, unadulterated hatred, and it's magical. Next, we have another band, technically not in the raw space scene, but it's still considered in the raw space scene. You got Proclamation, Advent of the Black Omen. Like I said, this band is from Spain, so they aren't from Canada, but people talk about them all the time like they are from the Ross Bay. Even inside the record, there's a Ross Bay stamp on the booklet, so it is part of the Ross Bay scene. But regardless, this is killer bestial black metal on the sound of Abysmal Lord, Sarcophago, Blasphemy, all those meshed together. And I'd say some Bathory too. This is the more perverse side of war metal. So not the militant side of, say, like Conqueror or Revenge or Diocletian. This is the perverse side. And it's really great stuff. A lot of people accuse Proclamation of being generic, and you could argue it is, but I don't think that makes it any less good. I think if you look at like this too, Blasphemy put out more or less the same album 3 times in a row, and everyone hails those albums as masterpieces. So I don't think this one deserves the ridicule it gets. I think Proclamation is killer, really solid Spanish war metal that is just very, very gross and mean and angry and incredibly well performed. So yeah, Proclamation is a classic band that I feel like doesn't get enough praise. They get a lot of recognition, but I don't feel like they get enough praise. So Proclamation, Advent of the Black Omen. Next we have probably my favorite Ross Bay band of all time. We have Revenge. Scumclaps Eradication. This is the continuation of Conqueror. This one has James Reed, and I always forget who the guy. In the early Revenge days, it was James and Heldenkamp or something. But nowadays, I got no idea. I don't have any idea who else is in Revenge. It's just James Reed as far as I'm concerned. But Revenge is one of the biggest names within war metal. They have the attitude of war metal down to a T. It's down to a science at this point. And Revenge is interesting because Conqueror was just pure noise. There's almost no letting up. Whereas Revenge is that same militant sound, but it's a bit of variation. Especially on the final track of this record, Scorn Detractor, Trust No One. There's a riff on the end of that song that is basically just like a thrash metal riff. So Revenge is the king of war metal in my opinion, along with Conqueror. But Conqueror only got technically one release, so I can't put it number one. But Revenge, as far as bands go, is easily my favorite ever. They just have an unfiltered and unapologetic hatred that bands can only dream of achieving. So, fucking remarkable band. Next we have, I'd say the biggest name, I'd say the most respected name within war metal, the almighty Conqueror. This is the debut full length from Conqueror. They only put out Antichrist Superiority, this, and Nuclear Cult Supremacy. But this is the debut full length. And in my opinion, as far as albums go, I think Revenge is a better band, but as far as albums go, this is easily my favorite war metal release ever. It is just insanely tight and raw, Black Death, but it's so well performed. You can tell these guys are musicians, and not just angsty teenagers making noise. Obviously, this is a very noisy record, but it's so well performed and so tight that it's like I said with I think Revenge. It's down to a science at this point. It's a very mechanistic and primal album that is just executed in a very controlled manner. And the songs on here are fucking remarkable. Dominator and Invictus, Infinite Majesty, and Bloodhammer are my favorite songs on here. Just an incredible record that influenced stuff like Primitive Warfare, Diocletian, Antichrist Siege Machine, all those bands. Every war metal band past 1999 is influenced by this in some way. And then plus fucking Revenge. Revenge copied this. Granted, it's the same members, but regardless, they did copy this. So yeah, Conqueror, War Cult Supremacy will always be the gold standard of war metal. And I'd say it's not only the best war metal album of all time, it's one of the best black metal albums of all time. So, absolute staple. Now, here we have the poster child of war metal. We have Blasphemy. This is the white variant, which is fucking pretty cool. It's on like white marble. But yeah, Blasphemy is undeniably the founders of war metal. Stuff like Sarcophago, Holocausto, Volcano, Sodom, they all were the founders of the sound, but Blasphemy was the one who really took that sound and made it into something that can be said is war metal. This is like, if you don't know this record, that's like saying to a black metal fan that you don't know Bathory. It doesn't make any sense. It means you don't know the first thing about war metal. So this is the war metal Bible. Black Witchery, Diocletian, Antichrist Siege Machine, Death Worship, Conqueror, they all worship this album and this band. And Blasphemy is like the godfathers of war metal to a lot of people. So much so that they are like the idols of so many bands. So Blasphemy is just unbelievably iconic. Also, I love the photos on this one because it's all white. It's really cool. And yeah, this album is front to back perfect. I don't love it as much as I used to, mainly because I've been discovering more abrasive shit, like Damar, Conqueror, all that shit. But regardless, this album will always be a classic. I got the flag right there. So yeah, it's always going to be a classic, regardless if it's my favorite or not. So Blasphemy, unbelievably timeless and iconic. Now we have the final record. We have Death Worship, Reaping Majesty. This is Brian Forrester's new project. It's about a decade old at this point, but it's new to me. This is a compilation of, I believe, new material as well as some of their early demos re-recorded. This is with the guys in Bloody Vengeance and Brian Forrester. I think that's the whole lineup. But regardless, this is Death Worship this is Conqueror basically carried on by Ryan Forrester, because James Reed is doing Revenge now. Ryan Forrester is doing Death Worship. So they're basically doing the same sound throughout Conqueror, Death Worship, and Revenge, just through different outlets. So Death Worship is the continuation of Conqueror. But the thing about Death Worship is it's way more, it's not palatable, but it's way more progressive, I guess you'd say, than Conqueror. It's got a lot of rhythm, a lot of really killer tight riffs, and it's got a lot of really interesting chanting vocals, especially on Reap Through Violence. So Death Worship is kind of like, you know how Beherit changed the game? They started with the style of Blasphemy, and then they changed and it became their own entity. This kind of is what Death Worship feels like to me. It's war metal, but it's a bit different. So yeah, this is really primitive, really raw stuff. It's a very fun listen, and it kind of feels nostalgic listening to it almost, because it echoes back to that early 90s to early 2000s scene, and this is just that scene recreated by one of the guys who was there. So it's very, very much a continuation of where metal was 20 years ago. So it's really, really good stuff. This is a really, I would imagine this is a good starting point. My first war metal release was Triumph, Genocide, Antichrist, but for starters with war metal, I would imagine this is a good release. So yeah, Death Worship, Reaping Majesty, really good stuff. And for the final release, let me just check where we are on the record. Okay, cool. For the final release we're going to be talking about, we have Abysmal Lord, Disciples of the Inferno. Again, with Proclamation and Black Witchery, this is not a Canadian band. I believe they are from like Virginia, some random U.S. state. But this is, a lot of people consider Abysmal Lord the continuation of Proclamation. So Proclamation was continuation of Blasphemy, and this is the continuation of Proclamation. And they're all pretty much the same sound. This is, just like I said, this is Proclamation worship, but just a tad bit more aggressive. You really, if you have Proclamation, you don't need Abysmal Lord. If you have Abysmal Lord, you don't need Proclamation. Proclamation, I think, is better. And to be honest, they are way more genuine feeling to me than Abysmal Lord. Abysmal Lord kind of feels like they're just doing what the bands before them were doing, whereas Proclamation has some sense of creativity behind them. Not in terms of the sound, but in terms of the love for the genre and the passion. But regardless, this is a really good album. Sabbath, Tyrant's Wrath, Tormenting the Virgin, Sermon of Fire, all really good songs that it echoes back to that Blasphemy, Beherit, Sarcophago time. It's kind of, like I said, with Death Worship, it kind of echoes that sound of the old days, and it's a bit nostalgic in a weird way. So yeah, really good stuff. Just, I would say this is not a necessity. It's good stuff, but not a necessity. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video. I plan on doing more videos breaking down scenes like the US scene, the Swedish scene, definitely the Brazilian scene. The Brazilian scene is a lot of great stuff. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please feel free to comment below your favorite release I mentioned and your favorite overall war metal band. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.